They will whisper of democracy, of consensus, of dialogue, and these too have their uses, but never mistake the ritual for the reality. Dialogue is often delay, consensus, a disguise for capitulation. And democracy, in its rawest form, is not the rule of the people, it is the management of their impulses. He who governs must learn to listen to the crowd as a general listens to the weather, not to follow it, but to forecast its changes, to anticipate its storms, to know when to sail with it, and when to build walls against it. Power is not about force alone, it is about perception. The shadow you cast must always be larger than your actual reach. Your enemies must think you know more than you do. Your allies must fear that you know too much. Control is maintained not only by the sword, but by suggestion. Let them think they chose you. Let them believe your rise was inevitable. People submit more readily to fate than to ambition. The wise leader makes fate his accomplice. You must become the mirror and the mask. Reflect what they want to see while hiding what you truly are. Speak of unity while dividing. Speak of peace while preparing for war. Speak of justice while positioning your loyalists. This is not deceit, it is survival. Those who demand purity in politics are either liars or fools, because to keep your hands clean in power is to keep them empty. You cannot build a state with innocence. You build it with understanding of fear, of loyalty, of need. Loyalty, like everything else, is conditional. Do not be seduced by oaths. People follow strength, and when that strength fades, so does their allegiance. Cultivate dependency. Let your allies thrive only through your favor. The moment they believe they no longer need you, they will sharpen their knives. That is the nature of power. It is not shared. It is delegated temporarily, and always with caution. And yet, the greatest threat is not your enemy. It is your softness, the desire to be seen as noble, the weakness of needing forgiveness. A ruler cannot live on apology. He survives on action. Let the historians write their verdicts. Your duty is not to be admired by future generations. Your duty is to hold the line now. Because the world you inherit is not stable, it is not fair, it is fractured, and it is hungry for someone who can wield order like a blade. You must decide, do you wish to be remembered fondly, or do you wish to be remembered at all? The world forgets the gentle, it remembers the decisive. To command, you must not ask permission. You must act in such a way that permission becomes irrelevant. Move swiftly, then justify. Never justify before moving. That is the path of the weak. In moments of uncertainty, the people crave confidence more than truth. Deliver it. Let your voice be steady when theirs shakes. Let your presence fill the silence after catastrophe. They will not ask what you believe. They will watch what you do. This is leadership. Not the pursuit of perfection, but the mastery of necessity. Not the embrace of ideals, but the manipulation of appearances. Not the avoidance of blood, but the choice of where it must fall. You do not need to be liked. You do not even need to be loved. What you need is presence, gravity, that unspoken force that commands attention, silences, dissent, and organizes chaos beneath your hand. Because in the final equation, when states are collapsing, when alliances fracture, when mobs rise, no one searches for the charming. They search for the unwavering, the one who speaks last, the one who decides. And that must be you. Power does not fade in a day. It is eroded quietly by indulgence, by flattery, by the comfort of being surrounded by those who will not challenge you. The moment you stop suspecting betrayal is the moment you begin to deserve it. Those closest to you will not strike from hate. They will strike from calculation. Betrayal is rarely emotional. It is economic, political, strategic. They weigh your utility against your vulnerability, and when the balance tips, they act. So you must remain unpredictable in your vigilance. Do not become so consistent that they learn your rhythms. Do not become so lenient that they test your boundaries. Power must have an edge, a visible cost. Let your court wonder where your favor begins and where it ends. Let them compete for your attention, not take it for granted. You must become both feared and necessary. One without the other breeds revolt. Together they create stability. Make no mistake, peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the result of controlled force. The illusion of calm rests upon the unspoken threat of disruption. This is why you must never let your enemies forget what you are capable of. Even in peace, you must rehearse war. Your inner circle must contain no equals. Advisors, yes, tools, certainly, but never peers. Equality among rulers breeds rivalry, and rivalry demands either submission or blood. You must cultivate intelligence not only through spies, but through silence. People reveal themselves most when they believe you are not listening. Make it a habit to observe without speaking. Learn who flatters, who hesitates, who watches others for cues before they speak. The weak do not betray directly. They whisper. They wait for the knife to be placed in their hand by someone bolder. Find that someone. Remove him. Loyalty is not a feeling. It is a cost-benefit equation. As long as those under you believe their survival and prosperity depend on your favor, they will stay loyal. The moment they believe they can flourish without you, your days are numbered. Do not confuse smiles with allegiance. Let them smile, but never stop watching their hands. You do not govern men, you govern appetites, pride, fear, ambition, vanity. These are the levers. Policies are for appearances. It is instinct that moves the masses. Never try to eliminate ambition. Channel it, redirect it. Give your subordinates paths to glory that depend on your success. When they see their futures rise with yours, they will guard your throne like it were their own. But if you let them build separate power, if you let them imagine a world where you are no longer necessary, they will create that world, with or without your permission. To rule is to manage inevitabilities. Death, envy, revolt. You cannot prevent them. You can only delay them, shape them, turn their timing and target to your advantage. Even execution is a tool. Use it rarely, but when you do, let it echo. Let it be clean, public, and justified by necessity, never emotion. Rage is weakness in disguise. You must never appear governed by anything other than calculation. Let them think you feel, but always feel less than they expect. Detachment is your shield. Because you will be tested not once, not twice, but endlessly. Power is a standing provocation. It invites challenge. It breeds resistance. And the longer you hold it, the more bitter the resentment becomes beneath the surface. So you must learn to balance cruelty with spectacle. Your punishments must be memorable. Your rewards, strategic. Your presence, magnetic. You must become the thing they whisper about behind closed doors, not out of hatred, but out of awe. Fear, when calibrated, breeds respect. Respect, when earned, hardens into control. And that is what you must seek, not admiration, not affection, but control. Only then can you shape the state. Only then can you outlive the chaos that destroys lesser men. Because the world does not reward the well-intentioned, it rewards the effective. And effectiveness requires fear. The battlefield has shifted. No longer do rulers command from horseback or address the crowd from stone balconies. Now the battlefield is the mind, and the weapon is narrative. In the past, power was visible, in swords, in banners, in executions that emptied the streets. Today, power wears a smile. It speaks in algorithms. It controls not by decree, but by suggestion, omnipresent, yet invisible. To rule in this age, you must not only master fear, you must master perception. Understand this. It is no longer enough to act. You must now choreograph. Every decision, every silence, every word must be staged with the precision of a strategist and the intuition of a predator. Because now, the masses are not just ruled, they are distracted. And distraction is the new sedation. Give them spectacle, give them controversy, feed them enemies, manufacture crisis if crisis does not appear. Keep the eye moving, always. A distracted people do not organize, they do not conspire. They consume. But never let the performance consume you. You are not the actor, you are the director. Never confuse applause with control. The crowd cheers for blood one day and demands your head the next. The whims of the masses are a current, powerful, but directionless. It is your task to dam it, to channel it, to decide when it floods and when it recedes. Do not fight their emotions, use them. Fear is more potent when wrapped in reason. Manipulate the language of safety. Speak not of punishment, but of protection, not of control, but of order, not of surveillance, but of peace. Always protect the myth of choice. Let them believe they chose the cage, that they voted for their walls, that they surrendered their autonomy for comfort. People will trade liberty for certainty, especially when afraid. And if they are not afraid, remind them why they should be. An invisible enemy, an external threat, a destabilizing force. Fear needs fuel. Feed it carefully, methodically, strategically. But remember this, even in the modern palace, isolation remains your companion. The higher you climb, the less you will be understood. Your words will be twisted, your intentions suspected, your victories resented. Do not explain yourself. Power explained is power diminished. Let them speculate. Let them misjudge. It is better to be feared for what they imagine than hated for what they understand. And trust no one who tells you otherwise. Because even in this age of digital chains and subtle coercion, betrayal still walks in silk. It shakes your hand. It smiles at your children. It agrees with your plans and leaks them behind your back. Information is now the new blood, and you must be its master. Monitor loyalties, not just in your court, but in the systems that feed it. Media, finance, technology, intelligence. You cannot rule what you do not watch, and you cannot trust what you do not own. Create networks, not friendships. Create dependencies, not partnerships. Build loyalty not on affection, but on fear of exclusion. Make yourself the gate, the one through whom power flows. And make the cost of defection so high that betrayal becomes suicide. This is how empires endure in an age where borders are digital and war is psychological. The old rules still apply, only the mask has changed. You are not fighting for popularity, you are fighting for permanence. And permanence in this new arena belongs not to the loudest, nor to the kindest, but to the most adaptable predator. The one who smiles when necessary, who apologizes when expedient, who cries with the people, and then orders the storm when the cameras are gone. This is your world now. Wired, surveillance-drenched, narrative-driven, and yet unchanged in its essence. The crowd still follows strength. The courtiers still betray when opportunity rises. The people still submit to the hand that protects them, even if it first frightens them into submission. And behind every face, there remains the same raw instinct. Survival. Tap that, shape that, rule that. And you will not only be feared, you will be untouchable. We now enter the ruler's most private war, the one not fought in chambers or on screens, but in the silence between decisions, the war against doubt, impulse, and mercy. This is where the architecture of fear turns inward, not to destroy, but to sharpen. To rule others, you must first rule yourself. Not in the way the poets mean, not by becoming noble, or serene, or wise in the abstract, but by forging your instincts into weapons, by disciplining your reactions until they serve only strategy, until nothing inside you moves without purpose. Because fear is not only what you inspire in others, it is also the force you must harness within, not to submit to it, but to ride it like a stallion that throws weaker men. Fear, properly understood, is not panic. It is vigilance. It is the heightened attention that precedes power. You must learn to fear the right things: complacency, routine, the hunger in others' eyes. You must fear softness in yourself, nostalgia, sentimentality, the voice that whispers, "You've done enough." You haven't. That whisper is treason. Every great downfall begins with a softening. The hand hesitates. The favor is granted twice. The punishment delayed. The warning signs ignored because you want to believe otherwise. And then the blade arrives not from the front, but from behind. Guided not by hate, but by calculation. So cut softness from your soul like a tumor. Compassion is not forbidden, but it must be measured, disciplined, never allowed to override strategy. You may let it out when it suits the optics, when it disarms the suspicious, when it makes your strength look human, but never, never let it steer the ship. The ruler who cannot punish is not a ruler. He is a hostage of his own image. You must become a paradox, fully human yet unreadable, capable of warmth, but never vulnerable to it, able to love and to act without hesitation against those you love, should necessity demand it. This is not cruelty. It is alignment with truth. The truth that those who lead must live outside the laws they impose, that justice for the ruler is not fairness, but survival of the structure he embodies. You are not a man. You are an axis, a fulcrum upon which order pivots, and if you collapse under the weight of personal emotion, the state goes with you. This is the solitude of command, the quiet horror that visits you at night when you weigh the cost of what you've done and prepare to do worse. You will have no equals, no true confidants, no friendships not bound in utility. Even love, if you permit it, will be a calculated risk, one you monitor, study, and keep on a leash. Your mind must become a fortress, impenetrable, devoid of reflex, immune to provocation. Every insult must be a test, every flattery a lure, every apology a delay tactic. You cannot afford to react. You only act, because every reaction costs power. You must study time itself, learn to let a threat ripen, learn to delay the blow until its impact is maximal. The impatient ruler bleeds his strength one cut at a time, but the patient one, he bleeds his enemies dry in silence until they collapse under their own momentum. Do not speak when silence terrifies more. Do not threaten when your absence already suggests danger. Let them wonder when your anger will arrive. Let that uncertainty do the work of 1,000 soldiers. Your discipline becomes their fear. Because if they see that you do not flinch, that you do not waver when punishing, do not stall when betrayed, do not crumble when isolated, they will believe you are something more than man. And belief is power. Every state is built on myth, the myth of its laws, its origin, its purpose. The ruler must become a myth himself, not by pretending to be divine, but by behaving as if touched by inevitability. You must become the storm that cannot be reasoned with, the silence that ends all debate. And to do this, you must conquer the urge to explain, to justify, to seek recognition. These are the weaknesses of common men. You are not common. You are necessity. And necessity by its nature is merciless. A ruler does not endure by charisma alone. No matter how feared you are, no matter how tightly you grip the reins, your command is fleeting if it is not institutionalized. Flesh tires, will falters. But systems, when properly constructed, outlive the man who made them. So the task is not simply to rule. It is to embed your will in structure, in habit, in bureaucracy, in ritual. The state must become your echo. And this begins with the creation of loyal mechanisms, institutions designed not to question, but to preserve, not to innovate, but to reinforce: the judiciary, the intelligence service, the treasury, the military, Each must be tethered not only by fear but by purpose, the understanding that their survival depends on your survival. To do this, you must purge neutrality. There is no room in your machine for impartial servants. You want believers, or those who fear you, more than they love ideals. Every node of power must be monitored, infiltrated, and periodically reshuffled. Never let any one faction feel too stable. Stability breeds ambition. Ambition breeds alternatives, and alternatives are death. Control is not centralization, it is managed imbalance. Let your agencies overlap. Let your ministers compete. Let your lieutenants distrust one another. When power is fragmented beneath you, it cannot conspire above you. Divide them not only in interest, but in worldview. The intellectual, the brute, the loyalist, the opportunist all have roles to play, but none must believe they are irreplaceable. Even loyalty must be kept hungry. Reward those who serve, but never enough that they grow independent. Feed their ambition in increments. Dangle the next step just out of reach. Make advancement possible, but never secure. That way they move towards you, not away from you. Fear does not flourish in stagnation. It thrives in motion when each man believes the next misstep could end his career, or worse. And do not underestimate the value of public rituals. Ceremony, awards, trials, national addresses. These are not formalities. They are theater, and theater shapes reality more efficiently than law. Let the people see strength where there is only choreography. Let them witness punishments, not merely hear of them. Let your mercy be performative, your justice spectacular. In a world drowning in information, appearances are the only truth that matters. Your enemies will try to use this. They will attack you not with weapons, but with narrative, scandal, exposure, ridicule. These are the insurgent tools of the modern age. So you must control the story, or drown them in noise. Own the organs of messaging. Media is not neutral. It will either reinforce your narrative or challenge it. Engage with it strategically, earn its trust, redirect its gaze, and always anticipate its role. And once you own the narrative, own time itself. Respond when you choose. Appear when it matters. Delay when it confuses. The one who controls the tempo controls the perception of truth. Never be reactive. The reactive ruler governs on his back foot, always compensating, always negotiating. You must be the one who imposes rhythm. Let your adversaries wake each morning wondering what you will do next. Let your allies watch you in awe and uncertainty. Even your silence must be interpreted as movement. The institution of fear is not a jail. It is a theater of unpredictability designed to make compliance feel safer than resistance, even when no direct threat exists. And over time, they will conform. They will internalize your preferences. They will edit themselves. They will anticipate your displeasure and act accordingly. This is power at its most refined, when your will becomes reflex in others. And when you are absent on a different continent, in a sealed room, in a coffin, the machine will continue, because you designed it not to protect liberty, but to protect hierarchy. Not to reflect justice, but to preserve control. The state is your mask. Behind it, you shape the world. Even fear, in time, must be renewed. The ruler who survives long enough must face what no enemy ever delivered. Erosion from within, not collapse, but corrosion. The slow wearing down of instinct, the softening of perception, the temptation to reminisce rather than anticipate. Power ages poorly in those who do not evolve. You will not always be as feared as you were at your height, but you can create something more, enduring a legacy embedded in institutions, remembered through precedence and example. The final test of a ruler is not how he governs in his prime, but what remains when he is gone. This is legacy, not memory. Memory is fragile. Legacy is architecture. And like all architecture, It must be designed, not hoped for. You must prepare your succession as you prepare your campaigns, with ruthlessness, with discipline, with foresight. Do not let nature or sentiment dictate who follows. Family is not destiny. Heirship is not blood, it is alignment with purpose. The weak ruler seeks a reflection of himself. The wise ruler seeks a continuation of control. You do not need a son. You need a weapon who thinks like you, who fears like you, who can speak the language of masks and punish without anger. Someone who understands the institution you've built and how to sit upon it without apology. But be warned, succession is the most dangerous phase of power. It invites vultures. It awakens old rivals. It tempts even the loyal. Because when the inevitable end draws near, all question what lies beyond your shadow, and some will seek to reshape it. This is why you must design not only the next ruler, but the conditions under which he rises. Control the courts, the council, the information flow, the narrative of your health. Make the uncertainty lethal to interfere with. Let them fear the chaos of transition more than they fear you. Let them whisper, "Better the tyrant we know." And while they whisper, build monuments not of stone, but of precedent. Let your decrees become default policy. Let your methods be studied in elite schools. Let your name be synonymous with order, not morality, but order, because order is what they will crave in your absence. Let your rule be remembered, not for its compassion, but for its results. Feed the myth, the ruthless protector, the necessary evil, the man who did what others could not. This myth, if properly curated, becomes a substitute for your presence. And myths are harder to assassinate than men. But even as you prepare for the end, remember, death does not mean irrelevance. Death, handled properly, is a final act of command. Leave behind unfinished instructions, secrets known only to your most trusted agent, contingencies to be activated if your successor falters, traps buried in the bureaucracy. Let them know even in death, your hand is still moving the pieces. This is the afterlife of a true ruler, to become unkillable in function, even if the body has rotted in state. To become doctrine, to become fear. Not of what you will do, but of what still might happen, even after your heart stops. Because fear is not a feeling, it is a structure. And if you have built correctly, that structure will stand long after your enemies dance on your grave. So when the time comes, do not cling. Do not beg history for kindness. Embrace the chill. Walk toward it with the same stillness you summoned when you punished your betrayers. Let death be the only act that even your closest allies cannot predict. And when you vanish, let the silence that follows feel like a judgment. Let your institutions endure, so that even in your absence, their function echoes your intentions. Because in the end, the most powerful rulers do not merely die. They disappear and become legend. We now turn to a darker filament within the ruler's tapestry, the manipulation of truth itself, not its erasure, but its repurposing, the cold alchemy of perception. Because to control reality, you need not destroy the truth. You need only outcompete it. Truth is never the problem. Belief is. The masses do not act on what is true, they act on what they believe is true. And belief is pliable, reactive, contagious. It does not reside in facts. It lives in story, in mood, in repetition. You must learn to wield truth like a dagger, concealed until useful, exposed when decisive, always aimed toward control. Understand this. The ruler does not lie unnecessarily. Lies are expensive when discovered, but you do not need to lie to distort. You can shape reality more effectively through framing, omission, and overload. In the age of noise, the most powerful deception is abundance. Do not silence truth, drown it. Let the facts emerge, surrounded by so many competing claims, interpretations, and emotional triggers that the public loses the thread. Confusion is the most fertile ground for control. In chaos, the people long not for truth, but for certainty. Offer it to them, wrapped in symbols, delivered with authority, delivered repeatedly. And they will follow you, not because you are honest, but because you are clear. Because they would rather be wrong together than alone with the truth. This is how you inoculate yourself against opposition. You make your version of events louder, faster, easier to consume. And when resistance forms, you do not suppress it outright, you fracture it. Seed competing narratives, encourage infighting, divide the opposition into purists and pragmatists, radicals and moderates. Let them cannibalize their momentum while you remain still, untouched, watching. Let them chase purity, you chase power. Even truth itself can be used, deployed selectively, weaponized with timing. Sometimes, a confession at the right moment secures more loyalty than a lie. Sometimes, transparency is a trap. You show them a scar, so they never look for the wound. You admit to one sin to bury 5. You grant access so that you may later revoke it and make them remember what you can take away. The key is control, not consistency. Your story must evolve with your needs. You are not a historian. You are an architect of memory. What they believe tomorrow is more important than what they believed yesterday. What matters is not accuracy, but alignment. Align their perception with your goals, and their behavior will follow. Even in the highest chambers of diplomacy, truth is a tool. Intelligence is never neutral. Data is never free of agenda. Every revelation is a move on a board, a test, a warning, a provocation, or a cover for something larger. And when the truth becomes inconvenient, delay it. Delay is the most elegant form of censorship. Let truth emerge when it no longer matters, when its impact has been neutralized, when the public has moved on. The modern subject forgets quickly, and memory, in politics, is a battlefield. Win the timing, and you win the war. You do not need to fear exposure. You need to master expectation. Make them expect shadows. Make them expect harshness. Then, even when truth breaks against you, it confirms the myth you've built that you are ruthless, yes, but necessary. Yes, but strong. Yes, but in control. This is how you survive in the modern palace. Not by pretending to be clean, but by owning the mud before they can throw it. You set the terms, you frame the fight, and they, armed with nothing but their principles, will march into the ring you have constructed, using the weapons you have permitted, under rules you wrote in secret. That is the essence of strategic deception. It is not just fooling the eye. It is guiding the eye to where you want it, while the real work happens elsewhere. In the end, all empires vanish. Marble cracks, statues fall. Names once spoken with awe become trivia for children, curses for rebels, or dust beneath a scholar's pen. You too will vanish. This is the truth no ruler escapes, not with armies, not with monuments, not even with fear. But the wisest of rulers does not try to escape death. He prepares for it not as surrender, but as culmination. The question is not whether you will fall. The question is whether, after you fall, the structure you built still holds. Whether the systems still move with your hand long after you've withdrawn it. Whether your enemies still calculate their moves as if you were watching. Whether your name, spoken aloud, still silences the room. That is the true legacy of power, not fame, not worship, but presence. An echo made flesh, a memory that commands. Because you did not rule to be loved. You did not rule to be forgiven. You ruled because someone had to. Because without your hand, the edifice would collapse. Because without your fear, they would have torn each other apart. Let them curse you. Let them write their moral fables. Let them pretend they could have done better, cleaner, more nobly. They weren't there. They didn't sit where you sat, with the kingdom collapsing behind the walls, with betrayal at the table and loyalty for sale in the markets. They didn't see what you saw. They didn't carry what you carried. But you did. You bore the weight. You did what was necessary. And now you must vanish as you ruled, without apology. History will not be kind. It never is to those who win. But fear outlives kindness. And though your name may fade from their mouths, it will remain etched in the architecture of things. In the rules no one questions. In the silence that follows your example. In the shadow that reminds them, someone once had the will to command. And that was enough. Let the throne empty. Let the myths decay. But let the system endure. Because in the end, you were not the ruler. You were the rule. And fear pure, calibrated, necessary fear was the only truth that ever mattered.